Hello everyone and welcome to your Photoshop challenge. My name is Wade Acuff. I'm an artist, animator, and illustrator, and today we're going to use gradient maps and color blend modes and a few others to color your photo or sketch. And in this case we're going to be working with a sketch that I did a while back, and if you look in the description below you'll find a source file. In that source file you'll find this little alien sketch that I made. And I've already done away with the little prompt layer, but we have our alien sketch, and what we need to talk about before we jump into any of the colorization is it's a little thing called midtones. And the way I work is I have a brush that has some transparency on it, so the sketch has a lot of transparency, which you can see if I turn this off. There is, you can see a lot of the transparency showing up in this sketch, but I use the background to kind of be a way to a mid-tone for the background, so that I can push and pull the values to make the sketch what it needs to be. And I want to show you guys a little bit how you can read an image with a histogram to see what the midtones look like. First thing I'm going to do is start with a new layer by pressing this little plus sign. I'm going to drag it below. I'm then going to select, I'll call this, well, we'll name it later after we use it. So I'm going to select our example layer, and then I'm going to press W so that we can get to select subject. And I'm going to use this, I'm going to click that and let Photoshop do its work. I use this all the time with my sketches. It doesn't have to just be with photographs. And then I'm going to make some selections. I am pressing the let's see, what do we got here? Yeah, oops. Keep our selection. I'm going to add to our selection by using the lasso tool and holding down Shift and just selecting some of the areas that select subject did not select. I'm going to be pretty loose with all of my selections today, but you can take as much time as you need. And I'm going to go back to this layer, and I'm going to press Shift F5. Well, maybe I will. Let's see, Shift F5. There we go. I'm going to select our background layer, which is now our foreground layer. Click OK, and you can see that we have a silhouette. It did not select it entirely. Let's see. It shouldn't have any gradient on it. Or shouldn't be transparent at all. I'm not sure why that is. Let's try that again. Shift F5, foreground color. Okay. I'm not sure why why we're having some transparency. I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate this. Oh, our fill. For some reason our fill is set down to 50%. Not sure why. Yours probably won't be. Okay, back on track. So what I want to do here is select the top layer, which still has transparency, and I want to show you what the histogram looks like. I'm going to use the levels. If you hit Control or Command L to pop in here, you'll get this data set, which is just called a histogram. And you can see that if you look, you have 256 range in value, and from here, if you look at this line right here, there's nothing darker than this value in this image. There's no stark black, there's nothing like that in this image. So there's not a lot to work with here. There's nothing to work with. You'll see this spike right here is where most of the values are that's in the sketch. And it just clearly makes sense. That's how many, the amount of pixels we have that are in this tonal range. And you can see that it kind of scoops down throughout this gradient, which is not quite what we want. You can also see that down here that only the highlights are kind of giving us this whole range right here. But if we go into our background and you press Control L or Command L on the Mac, you'll see that we have one spike. Let me do this so that better suit visual people out there. You have one tone, which is the gray tone, the mid-tone that we have. There is nothing darker than that. You can see that it lines up about right here on our range, and there's nothing brighter than that. So we want to combine these two, and we'll see what the difference looks like once we merge these. I'm going to select this, turn it back on, Control or Command E, and then when I press go back into our levels, you see a greater range in our midtones, and that's what we're going to use for the gradient maps, but more importantly for the color blend mode we're going to use later on. Whew! Okay, so that's all of that. I'm going to turn our background back on, deselect. I want to say hello to everybody in chat. If you have any questions, please pop them in chat. If you're watching over on YouTube, we're live over on Behance now, or in the future, every day. Join us at behance.net/Adobe Live. And now we can jump into some coloring here. I'm going to make a copy of this immediately because we're going to work with copies throughout this whole thing. So first we're going to start and make a base color, and you can do whatever you want to with this. I already have a plan. I'm going to add a gradient map. You can add a gradient map through going to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, come down to Gradient Map, or you can hop over here, conveniently placed in your Layers window, Adjustment Layer, Gradient Map. And then I'm going to make sure I make a clipping mask with this by pressing Alt or Option on the Mac and hovering between the two layers. Click and press, and it will add this as a clipping mask. And I'm going to call this gradient map base color. And there we can double click into our properties, or you can double click on, well, I thought you could do that. Maybe not. In our properties, you can definitely double click and open up the gradient editor. This is where all of our colors are going to be decided. And I'll show you how this slider works. It works just like we saw with the histogram. So we know that roughly this range is nothing beyond this way to the left is really going to involve our sketch. So I'm just going to trash that little node and grab it. If you see, I want to start with a red, and I'm just going to start adding darker colors as we go. And you do want to work with this as a gradient, just as it says, from darker to lighter or lighter to dark. And I'll show you what that means if you kind of interrupt that flow. This little thing, this little widget right here, shows the location. It basically, if you want the blend of your gradient to be heavier one direction or the other, that's what that does. We're not going to mess with that too much, but let's keep coloring here. I'm going to kind of work my way up and start bringing in a few orange colors as we go. I'm just going to kind of rapidly run through this, start bringing in some yellows a little bit. Keep popping down here, keep working up the gradient. Dropping in some more yellow potentially. And this is just me working down a chain of the gradient. But that doesn't mean you can't mix it up, especially if you're working with a photo. If I wanted to select a blue and start to find, ooh, maybe this is something fun, something we want to do, that we can do that. But I don't want to do that. I want to stick kind of to our yellow and maybe even keep it a little more desaturated as we crawl upward. And I'm going to click OK for this. And this is what I mean by if you don't work from dark to light or light to dark. If I go in here and add a light color, it starts to make a posterized version, sort of like an invert almost. But so you want to kind of work from dark to light or light to dark. I'm going to click OK on this, and I'm going to turn this one off, and I'm going to make a copy of this just to have a copy to work with in a moment. And I'm going to save this for later. You could call this done. You could say, hey, we made something cool. It's it's now not black and white, it's color. But we're going to keep working through this. I'm going to hide that for now, turn on our copy. And now I'm going to work on different selections. So like I said before, I'm going to make some rough selections throughout the rest of this adventure. I am selecting only the skin tones at the moment. So I'm going to get all of these hands. I'm a big believer with creatures and aliens, the more hands or feet, the better. I only managed to get about 4 on this one, so not setting the highest bar, but that's okay. Maybe next time. So now that I've selected these, I'm going to use, you know what, I want to make this a little sharper. Did I bump that? I may have bumped it. And I'm just using the lasso tool. Well, I was using the lasso tool. Let's see, do I want to keep this selection? Yeah, we'll just keep this. If you press Control-Shift-J, it will cut the selection off and make a new layer from that selection. So if I hide this, you'll see now that that's clipped out, it's cut out, and we're going to just go right into adding a gradient map to this again. Make sure you make this a clipping mask, again holding Alt or Option on the Mac and then clicking between the 2 layers. And I want this to be, I'm going to jump right down to the areas that matter. I'm going to get rid of that node. I could just slide that original node down. It's fine. Either way you're going to work. I'm going to again start with some red as a base, but then I'm just immediately going to jump to kind of a predictable green, alien green. And you hardly see any of that red. You don't see any of that red coming through, maybe a few pixels. And that's okay. We're going to keep moving down the line. Up here, I'm going to maybe creep into some yellow. Let's see, I don't want it to be lighter. There we go. Again, keep moving down the chain. Maybe moving away a little bit more into the orange. Maybe not too much. And again, you can do what you want to with this. If you especially go explore. I'm going to make this one a little bit darker. I can slide this down a little bit, and it'll start to creep all of our. You'll see how it'll start to make everything darker because we're moving the lighter towards the end. And we're going to call that, we'll call that okay. Maybe make this a little bit darker. Oh, you can also select anywhere in this chain. If I want to select a node and then use the eyedropper, I can make this darker. And then I'm going to click OK on that. That's cool. I'm going to turn these off for now. Jump back to our example. This time I'm going to select, let's see, oops, sorry about that. I'm going to select the collars, and I'm a firm believer too that if you want something to be sci-fi, you have to have a double collar, at least, minimum 2 collars. Make this selection, skadoosh. You can unselect things with the lasso if you hold down Alt or Option while you're in that tool. I'm going to clean this up slightly. Okay. Again, Control-Shift-J, making a new layer with our collars, immediately jumping into the gradient map. And then we're going to make this kind of a blue. And I'm just going to slide this down just to show what we didn't do last time. We can just use that first one. Also, what I didn't do is I didn't make the clipping mask. Click OK. Make a clipping mask here. Oh, gotta get out of this. Again, hold Alt, hover between the 2, make clipping mask. Double click that, get right back to work. Add a new node. That's right, 2 collars minimum. I want this to be a bluish color, and I'm going to bring it down slightly. I'm going to bring it back up, maybe alter that blue a little bit towards the green, more of an aqua. I don't think we really want to mess with this level. Maybe we do, maybe slightly. Okay, there we go. Press OK, and then we only have this last example left, which you can see if I hide that, we've got everything. I'm going to turn everything back on for now. And, well, let's make sure we have everything on. There we go. And then I'm going to get into this last layer, make sure we hit gradient map, make sure that we also make a clipping mask. Let's see. So I see a how. Is that a question, Annika? I don't know how to respond to just a how, so if there is more of a question, let me know. Okay, so we're back to this, and we're going to jump in here, and let's make this jacket kind of a red color. Again, starting with this kind of deep red. Let's see. I don't really, I'm trying to keep up with what's happening in chat, but I'm not sure that that would be the most productive thing at the moment, considering the topics. Okay, I'm going to make this jacket orange color, and I'm going to kind of make it more and more saturated as we go up the chain here. And then at the end, pull it back to something a little more desaturated. Fairly garish, right? We've got what a wild selection here. That's okay, because we're going to come back and use our base color, turn this back on. This is going to help homogenize everything, and I'm just going to start bringing down the gradient, the opacity on this layer, and you see things starting to kind of work together again. So that's one way to kind of bring everything back in. You could always also use these photo filters and color lookups to kind of explore different color options as well. From there, though, I want to select everything that we've done, put it in a folder, call this base color, because then I want to add a blend mode, specifically a color blend mode to this, and I'm going to call this one color blend mode or something, just so you know what's up. And from here we should be able to paint. Well, before we paint, let's make sure we make another clipping mask so it's clipped to everything we did before. And here we can paint with any brush you choose, and you're only going to be affecting the hue and saturation. If I bring this, and I'm looking up at the color cube right here, if I bring this to the whitest white, there's no saturation in that. So all I'm going to do is doing is desaturating our entire image. That's not what we want, because we just spent so hard, spent so long working so hard bringing this color up. So we don't want to do that. But the same thing, just to show that we're not working with values here, I selected the darkest of the dark, and also it just desaturated. But we want to work with the hue and saturation. The first thing I'm going to do is actually desaturate this eye, and I'm going to do it, just picked something a little bit. This is the kind of painterly part of this. I picked something that's desaturated, but then I want to come back in here with like a really saturated blue or green or something, and then I'm going to pop in here with some orange around this eye, maybe some red, maybe it's a little bit more red than that. And all you're using here this entire time, these are where all the midtones are coming into play. This is everything that we worked on to make those midtones a little more robust. If you didn't have that, you wouldn't have as much range to work on this image. And you can come in here with anything. I can come in here with a yellow now, and maybe, let's see, that's about the same yellow. Let's make it a little orange, desaturated a little bit. Just something closer to a skin tone, potentially. Let's see, what else? Maybe we can add like a little blue shade down here, something to just kind of knock these elbows back a little bit. You can add that into the shadows, something like that. You can do all kinds of things in desaturating areas that you don't want to, maybe this pin pocket protector, it doesn't have a color you want to assign to it yet, you can just do that. If you want to add a blue, anywhere in here, or anything that's like, let me just try this out, That's what this whole process lets you do in a really easy way. And again, this can be done with photographs as well. But before we move on to a photographic example, let's add a little icing to this. I'm going to clip this. We've got a little stack of clipping layers, and I'm going to turn this into a color dodge. Now, despite popular opinion, I do use color dodge from time to time, and I'm going to use it right now to make a rim light. And I'll just call this rim light, and I'm just going to add something here, a little bit of a green rim light, sort of green. It's green on the orange, less green on the little blue collar, and then we're starting to get a little something. And you can do that with any color. It doesn't have to be that color. If I hit Control A and delete and then grab a red, we can have this really like blasting, bright red light popping in here, orange light. And I'm just treating this as if the light's coming around the rim of this, the character from behind. So that's how we can do this with a black and white illustration, or you can take an illustration you have colored, desaturate it, and start all over again and just go wild with exploration. But there's one thing I want to show you, that you can do this with photographs, and it can be kind of fun as well. So if illustration is not your thing, you can do this with photographs. And I'm going to open this. This is an image I got from stock.adobe.com. And I'm just going to make a gradient map, apply the gradient map. We're going to immediately take this down to our original almost black and white. You can see the full range of the gradient happening here. From there, I'm just going to grab a little spot. And maybe we're thinking about this as like, oh, I have an image, it needs to be stylized. I've got to put it in an editorial, or I have to make a cover of something, but I don't want to use just the photo. So that's kind of the way I'm approaching this. I'm going to select a blue, relatively dark still, because we're towards the left side of this gradient. Click OK. I'm going to come in here and make another point. Add a red to this. I'll make this more red than orange, I think. There we go. Something like that. And I'm going to grab this gray and pull it out. I mean, and practically you could go, okay, we're done. I think we've done something. Like, and you can mess around with this, but that's a real quick way to just stylize a photograph. And I do encourage you for this challenge to take a photograph you already have, whether it's color or black and white. If it's color, desaturate it, add new colors to it. It's a fun way to kind of explore all of that. But that is going to be it for today. I can't wait to see what you guys are going to do with this, whether it's a photograph or using the sketch I provided. And by all means, provide your own sketch if you'd like. That would be, I'd love to see it. If you want to join in the party that we're having on Discord, just go over to bit.ly/psdiscord. They're having a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun. I would love to see you join our Creative Cloud community as well. There's a lot of great, amazing live content coming up today. So stick around for that. And we'll see you guys soon. Have a good one. Bye, everybody.